Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Pilgrim's Grey Chronicles. This is a continuation from last Monday, part 2 of what will be a 3-part series dealing with the tactics of our favorite fallen watchers and those who serve them. I have been sick all weekend. Fever, hot flashes, aches and pains all over my body. So forgive me if I sound a little tired or whatever this particular episode. I haven't been this sick in a while, and the aches and pains and stuff and feeling like a 80-year-old arthritic man has been pretty rough. And to be honest, I really didn't even want to do the podcast. I was just going to put something else up, but I thought, no, we can do this. And anyway, what you're hearing right now is a acoustic / piano piece that I did for my wife that I called AD, because that's part of her initials. And anyway, you enjoy it while it's playing in the background while we go into section or part 2 of our 3-part series. Don't forget to like and to share and to follow. We are on 8 a.m. Central Standard Time every Monday, Wednesday nights at 9, and Friday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we really appreciate all your support here lately. Had a lot of nice comments, a lot of good emails, and other engagement has been nice. And there's been some decent exchanges of people who disagree, and so as I've said, we really appreciate any feedback, every share, every like, everything. And if you would like to continue to support this podcast or our band in any other way, then I will, like I said, but I haven't done yet, faithfully, make sure to put in some of our links to social media and our band webpage and things of that nature in the description and or maybe a pinned comment so you can follow. And so without further delay, I'm going to jump right in because this will be a long one. What I've done on this one is I've kind of just given us a timeline of events and the tactics from starting from the beginning up until modern times today. I'm going to cover a few eras or epochs of history. In the first episode, we basically did just some of the foundational things like who they are and things of that nature. And so we're going to go into a little bit more detail on this one. And next week, we will cover in part 3 more modern day things like today, like the characters, political, religious, and events of today, and how they're shaping everything for these kinds of tactics that they use to screw up this world. So, if history were a murder mystery, humanity would be the victim, the fallen watchers would be the unseen masterminds, and their elite human accomplices, the bankers, scientists, politicians, and occultists, would be the shady figures lurking in the background, whispering, "Nothing to see here," while stuffing classified documents into a briefcase. This is the story of how a 7,000-year-old conspiracy is played out, from ancient blood rituals to digital enslavement, connecting key figures, institutions, and secret programs that, coincidentally, all seem to know each other. Coincidence? Please. So let's walk through the crime scene, starting from the days when angelic beings got a little too friendly with human women, and ending in a world where billionaires want to upload your brain into a cloud. All right? So, roughly 10,500 BC, we'll rehash a few things that we went over last week to some degree. Anyway, you have the first great reset, right? Humanity is thriving, and the world isn't just sticks and stones. It's sophisticated with lost civilizations that built pyramids, megaliths, and possibly Wi-Fi free versions of the internet, right? Then you enter the fallen watchers, divine beings who, instead of following their job description, watching over humanity, they decide to marry human women and lust after them and produce hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, and teach mankind forbidden knowledge, especially to the wives of the Nephilim. And so this knowledge appears to be things like genetic tampering, war technology, astrology, occultism, and its practices, and all manner of government corruption. And so the result is total corruption of humanity. And then God wipes the slate clean with a flood in Genesis 6:4 and Enoch 7:1-6. But, surprise, the Watcher's influence survives through bloodlines and hidden knowledge. And then roughly 2000 BC, around Babylon and the first global control system, we have Nimrod, the great-grandson of Noah, that decides, hey, let's build a tower to the heavens, which is basically ancient Sumerian for let's reopen the portal to the Watchers. And the Tower of Babel isn't just a building project, it's a re-attempt to bring the old gods back into direct rulership. Now, I know they're not true gods, they are just rebellious angels desiring worship, but just know that when I say that, that's what I mean. So God shuts it down, the nations are divided, languages are scrambled, and Nimrod is turned into a cautionary tale. But of course, mystery religion and secret societies are born from this, keeping the Watcher's playbook alive. But I think that was very, very frustrating for them, because it divided all of them. And it's kept their plans from being carried out. I think it was one of the greatest thwarting of their activity on earth, aside from the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, Genesis 11, which is why I think they use the number 11 in a lot of their communications. It's an important number to them. So let's jump ahead a little further to more modern times. 1800s, we have the rise of occult prophets and bloodline power players. It's the 1800s is a time of corsets and steam engines and a suspiciously coordinated push to reshape human belief systems. So while most people were out there just trying to survive on bread and questionable sanitation, a select group of elites and mystics were busy laying the groundwork for humanity's grand deception. In 1875, enter Madame Blavatsky, the grandmother of New Age nonsense. Before the hippies made channeling spirits cool in the 60s, Helena Blavatsky, who lived from 1831 to 1891, was already summoning entities and writing their propaganda. She founded the Theosophical Society in 1875, which, if we're being honest, was just an elite rebranding of ancient occultism with a sprinkle of science to make it more palatable to intellectuals. So Blavatsky's magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, written in 1888, is a 1,500-page fever dream that basically argues humanity is evolving towards godhood because, of course. And then the ascended masters, aka fallen angels, are here to quote-unquote help us, totally not deceive us into rebellion, right? And then Lucifer is actually the misunderstood hero of the story. So it's where a lot of popularized modern-day Gnosticism comes from. I mean, it's been around for some time, but She helped to popularize it in modern day. So, yes, she literally praised Lucifer as the true liberator of mankind, because what's a good occult doctrine without a little hail to the light-bringer action, right? So the problem is that Blavatsky's ideas didn't just stay in creepy parlor rooms with candlelit seances. They spread into elite circles, influencing politicians, secret societies, and even Hitler's inner occultist crew. So, enter the 1920s, Alice Bailey, Blavatsky's reboot, now with extra demonic messaging. Blavatsky dies in 1891, but don't worry, her work didn't. Alice Bailey, from 1880 to 1949, picked up the torch and ran with it straight into the arms of a demonic hierarchy. She wrote over 24 books, many of which she claimed were dictated to her telepathically by a Tibetan master named Jual Kul. Spoiler alert, this wasn't a Tibetan monk. It was a demonic entity feeding her instructions. So, her most famous work, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, basically it's a manifesto for the globalist occult takeover. So, in it, she outlines 1, the spiritual hierarchy, fallen angels are ready to rule openly. 2, humanity must prepare for the return of the Christ, except not Jesus, but rather a false Messiah. 3, Christianity must be reinterpreted to align with the New World religion or order of the ages. And then 4, the endgame, a global system where Luciferian enlightenment is the new norm. So, Bailey's works became foundational to the United Nations spiritual philosophy. That's right. The Lucis Trust, formerly Lucifer Publishing Company, is directly tied to the UN. So the next time someone tells you the UN just wants peace and unity, remind them that their spiritual blueprint came from a woman talking to demons. In the 1870s, John D. Rockefeller decided he would turn medicine, education, and business into control systems for these occultists. So, meanwhile, while the mystics were busy getting possessed and writing bestsellers, another key player enters the scene, John D. Rockefeller, from 1839 to 1937. You probably know him as a monopoly building oil tycoon, but did you know he also played a massive role in rewriting reality itself? Medicine. Rockefeller funded the scientific medical establishment, ensuring that holistic and natural healing were demonized in favor of pharmaceutical dependence. His family, of course, wasn't taking the meds they pushed on the public. Education. His foundation shaped the modern school system, replacing biblical morality with secular humanism and Darwinism. In business, he bankrolled Darwinian evolution's rise in academia, because an elite class obsessed with genetic superiority really needed that scientific excuse for why they deserved to rule. So Rockefeller's influence ensured that evolution, materialism, and secularism became the dominant worldview. 100 years later, most of the world just accepts it as truth. Absolutely. You think of something's wrong with me, I need to go to the doctor and have some sort of petroleum-based pill product shoved down my face. And did you know that the number 3 reason for death in this world, doctors and wrongful prescriptions or wrongful deaths and so on, and yet we trust them implicitly with our lives? You just need to re-educate yourself and remember the old days of, healthy remedies from nature, from things that God has made. I think we're rediscovering these things, but they were so demonized in the 1800s by Rockefeller that nobody dared do it because they considered it witch doctor and quackery. But they work, and we know they work. Anyway, so what we see emerging from the 1800s is Blavatsky and Bailey push occult doctrines into elite circles, setting the stage for New Age deception. Theosophy lays the foundation for globalist spiritual agendas, eventually influencing the UN. Rockefeller reshapes medicine, education, and science to eliminate biblical truth and push a materialist worldview. And then the pieces are falling into place for the 20th century explosion of occultism, globalist control, and mass deception. So, along the way, all of these people had help, and they all sort of knew each other and ran in many of the same circles, like Darwin. And it just seems funny to me that all of that seemed to transpire at the same time. You know, like a multi-pronged front. So, medicine, education, and basically a world that can be explained without there having to be a god is what they pushed on us. And then the 20th century now takes these seeds and multiplies them into full-blown world-changing events, from Luciferian technocrats to mind control experiments and the push for a new world order. In the 30s and 40s, we had the Nazi occult connections and Operation Paperclip. So the 30s and 40s weren't just about war, tanks, and goose-stepping psychopaths. Behind the scenes, the Third Reich was running a massive occult-driven treasure hunt, a real-life Indiana Jones type thing, but with way more ritual sacrifices and genocidal madness. So the Nazis weren't just fighting for military supremacy, they were obsessed with unlocking ancient power, the kind that goes way beyond conventional science. And their mission? Find and resurrect lost Nephilim bloodlines, recover pre-flood watcher technology, and establish a kingdom that mirrored the gods of old. Yeah, sounds like Babel, doesn't it? Himmler, the SS, and the Nineveh, Nazi Indiana Jones on steroids. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, wasn't just a military leader. He was a full-blown occult warlord who believed the Aryan race descended from ancient god kings. And under his command, the Nineveh was created, a Nazi think tank dedicated to tracking down pre-flood artifacts, genetic secrets, and occult knowledge hidden across the world. So, in the Tibet expeditions, they were looking for the Aryan god men. Between 1938 and 1939, the SS, Himmler's secret occult research division, sent an official German expedition to Tibet under explorer Ernst Schaffer. The team carried out skull measurements, DNA analysis, and extensive research into Tibetan myths and Buddhist texts. Now, why? Well, the Nazis were obsessed with the Aryan master race theory, believing that ancient hyper-intelligent godmen, or the Nords, once ruled the world and that the remnants of their bloodline still existed in isolated regions. So Tibetan legends spoke of Shambhala and Agartha, mysterious hidden cities beneath the earth where enlightened beings supposedly still dwelled. They believed that Buddhist monks held secret knowledge from pre-flood civilizations, possibly even remnants of Nephilim or fallen angel teachings. Some Nazi ideologists thought the Yeti, or abominable snowman, was a living link to a superior ancient race, essentially a missing link in their Aryan origin myth. Much like many in this day and age suspect that Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, is also related to the Nephilim and other such things. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Like I said, been sick all week, or all weekend. So the result, the SS team brought back artifacts, documents, and skulls that were later studied in German occult circles, and some of these findings may have influenced Nazi eugenics programs. So then we have the hunt for the Holy Grail. They really did this. No joke. The Nazis under Otto Rahn, a Himmler-backed archaeologist, searched France's Languedoc region, particularly Montségur and René Lachateau for the Holy Grail, believed to be not a cup, but an object of immense supernatural power. Now, why did they do this? Otto Rahn was obsessed with the Cathars, a medieval Gnostic group that was wiped out by the Catholic Church. The Cathars supposedly possessed a grail-like relic hidden before their final stand at Montségur in 1244. Rahn and Himmler believed the Grail was a portal to higher knowledge or divine energy, not just a relic. So did they find it? Officially, no. But Rahn mysteriously resigned from the SS and later died under strange circumstances. Himmler still held secret Grail ceremonies at Wurzburg Castle, suggesting the Nazis may have found something, or at least believed they did. And then we had the Antarctica expeditions. I always wonder what they were really looking for. I don't think anybody still knows. In 1938 and 39, the Nazis launched New Schwabenland expedition, sending a German U-boat fleet and a research team to claim a chunk of Antarctica. They mapped the area extensively, dropped thousands of swastika-marked stakes, and named the territory New Schwabenland. So, why would they do this? The Nazis believed in the hollow earth theories, thinking there might be an ancient lost civilization beneath the ice. Rumor suggested that advanced pre-flood technology or a Nephilim city was buried there. Some claim they were searching for an entrance to Agartha, the fabled underground kingdom. Declassified CIA and KGB files later suggested that strange military activity occurred in Antarctica post-World War II, including the infamous Operation High Jump from 46 to 47, when the U.S. Navy suddenly launched a massive Antarctic mission, losing multiple aircraft and personnel. Pretty weird. Why would they send all those ships and people to the Antarctic for just expeditionary things? So did the Nazis find anything there? Well, there are rumors of hidden Nazi bases, unexplained U-boat activity, and UFO sightings all over Antarctica post-World War II. Some researchers claim the Nazis transported, quote, special cargo there in 1945 before the war ended. So whatever the truth, Antarctica remains an off-limits, heavily restricted zone to this day. You can go there, but you're not going to get to see anything you would really want to see. And I think it's amusing that one of the only places you can visit is called the Isle of Deception. So, another thing they searched for was the Spear of Destiny, the ultimate power relic. Spear of Destiny, also known as the Holy Lance, was displayed in the Hofburg Museum, Austria. In 1938, Hitler personally ordered it confiscated and transported to Nazi-controlled Nuremberg. The spear was kept under high security at St. Catherine's Church, while SS occultists supposedly carried out rituals with it. Now, why would they do this? Well, the spear was believed to grant invincibility to its wielder, based on the legend that whoever possessed it controlled the fate of the world. It was supposedly the very spear used by the Roman centurion Longinus to pierce Christ's side in John 19:34. Hitler had been obsessed with the spear since his youth, reading about it while in Vienna. So what happened to it? April 30th, 1945, U.S. forces seized the spear from Nuremberg. Coincidentally, the same day Hitler reportedly committed suicide. General George S. Patton had the spear studied and returned it to Austria. But was the real spear recovered? Some believe a replica was returned and the original remains hidden. So what does all that mean? Well, the Nazis weren't just playing war. They were on a global, occult-driven quest for ultimate power. They believed that they could unlock hidden knowledge of the Nephilim and fallen angels, access supernatural power through artifacts and bloodlines, resurrect pre-flood knowledge and lost civilizations, and use forbidden technology to win the war and possibly open interdimensional gates. So when the war ended, the research didn't disappear. It was absorbed into Western intelligence agencies, secret programs, and black budget projects. And this wasn't some quirky side project. The Nazis poured millions into these expeditions because they believed these artifacts held actual power. For instance, Die Glock, the Bell Project. One of the most mysterious projects under Nazi rule was Die Glock, the Bell, an alleged anti-gravity, time-bending, or interdimensional device, depending on which declassified document or witness that you read about. So according to Polish journalist Igor Witowski, and later declassified intelligence files, this massive bell-shaped device was powered by a mysterious red mercury-like substance, aka serum 525. It produced deadly radiation and strange temporal distortions around it, and may have been attempting to open portals, possibly contacting non-human entities. Eyewitnesses reported strange disappearances, flashes of light, and violent energy surges. Some researchers speculate this was Nazi occult technology attempting to interact with the other side. Now, doesn't it seem strange that post-war, the U.S. government suddenly got obsessed with UFOs and weird aerial phenomena? Almost like they inherited a program they did not fully understand. So in 1945, the Nazis technically lose, but their occult knowledge is smuggled out of Germany. You would think, after committing some of the worst crimes in human history, these Nazi scientists would have been dragged straight to the gallows, but nope, welcome to Operation Paperclip. Instead of being executed or rotting in prison, Nazi scientists, engineers, and intelligence officers were quietly recruited by the U.S. government. But why? Well, because the Nazis were light years ahead in tech, biological warfare, and, let's be honest, occult research. So let's look at some of the key names in their new homes. Werner von Braun, I think most of you know that name. He led rocket scientists. He was the father of NASA's space program, and he also built the V-2 rocket that killed thousands in London. Some folks you might not be as familiar with, Kurt Blom. He was a Nazi bioweapon specialist. Instead of facing trial, he was hired by the U.S. Army for chemical weapons research. And then Reinhard Gehlen was the head of Nazi intelligence on the Eastern Front. After the war, he was put in charge of the newly created CIA Soviet Intelligence Division. And then Arthur Rudolph, a key figure in NASA's Saturn V rocket development, also responsible for slave labor death camps under the Nazis. So where did these guys end up? NASA. Von Braun and his rocketry team basically built the U.S. space program. DARPA, under experimental military technology, and the CIA. Even that's not what they were not originally called. It was called something else at the time. I can't remember for the life of me. Anyway, Galen's Nazi intelligence apparatus just changed logos, really. So what does all that mean? It means that after World War II, the U.S. pretty much absorbed Nazi technology, Nazi intelligence operation, and, quite frankly, Nazi ideology into its deepest institutions. So this wound up shaping the world in a lot of different ways. So now we have NASA's origin are tied to Nazi science, which itself was linked to occult-driven research into lost knowledge. Then the U.S. government suddenly became obsessed with UFOs, mind control via MKUltra, and remote viewing programs eerily similar to Nazi occult experiments. I'm sure it was just a coincidence. And then the CIA's earliest intelligence operations were literally run by former Nazis, many of whom were directly involved in eugenics and psychological warfare. So by 1947, we suddenly have Roswell, the creation of the CIA, the NSA, and the National Security State. Was that all just a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think the Nazis were just trying to win a war. They were trying to open doors to another realm, resurrect Nephilim knowledge, Watcher knowledge, and unlock pre-flood technology. When they lost the conventional warfare, their scientists and knowledge were absorbed into the highest levels of the U.S. government and its agencies. So you have to ask yourself, if the Nazis' occult-fueled research survived, where did it go? And is it still influencing the world today? Because it sure seems like it is to me. So, the next era, the 1950s to 70s, brings CIA mind control, genetic experimentation, and the push for a new world order under new branding. So, the 1950s, a time of white picket fences, soda shops, and government-funded mind control experiments. So while the average American was busy watching Leave It to Beaver with globes in virtually every episode, go back and look. I know many of you are probably not flat earthers, but you should know that that brainwashing began all the way back then. You will find a globe in virtually every TV show, just like today in virtually every other show, you wind up seeing some of the ancient things like the obelisk over Washington, D.C., or the dome. They love to show those things. Just be watching for it next time you see other shows or whatever, or if you wind up watching Leave It to Beaver reruns. So the CIA was running psychological horror shows in secret labs, trying to crack the human mind wide open and reassemble it however they pleased, while you were watching Leave It to Beaver. So in 1953, the CIA launched Project MKUltra, officially to study mind control and interrogation techniques during the Cold War. Unofficially, however, they wanted to see if they could erase personalities, implant new ones, and create programmable human weapons. Think Jason Bourne. So how it worked, the methods were straight out of a dystopian horror novel. LSD and other hallucinogens were used to shatter the psyche. Sensory deprivation was used to make subjects more suggestible. Hypnosis and sleep experiments to insert false memories. Extreme trauma, electric shock therapy, and isolation to break minds entirely. And programming victims from childhood, just like satanic ritual abuse survivors describe. So who was involved with this? We have Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the CIA's poisoner-in-chief mastermind of chemical and psychological warfare experiments. You have Dr. Ewan Cameron, ran Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute, where he shattered hundreds of innocent minds, erasing personalities using high-voltage electroshock therapy. How nice. And then we have Colonel Michael Aquino. That's a familiar face, right? He was a military psychological warfare officer openly involved in occult practices and mind control programming. He later founded the Temple of Set, a satanic cult operating in high places. How charming. So, is this all coincidence? MKUltra and ritual abuse sure look awfully similar, don't they? And who would have been teaching them these things, do you think? Who do you think behind the scenes explained these things to humans to practice upon one another? So for decades, survivors of elite-run satanic ritual abuse, or SRA, have described almost the exact same techniques used in MKUltra. For example, splitting the mind through extreme trauma. And when I say extreme, I mean things of your worst nightmares that I will not recount here. But you can go listen to interviews with SRA victims, and then creating multiple personalities, or DID, for different tasks, so to speak. So they shatter you rebuild you, and put different personalities in you that they wake up with triggers. Kind of like an example might be some of these people that you see shoot up a movie theater and can't even remember doing it. They don't even remember going there. And if I recall, there was a book somebody wrote on a pale horse, I believe, where he warned that this was going to wind up happening, that they would train these DID folks with different tasks, like shooting up grade schools, to get rid of things like the Second Amendment at some point in the future. So, born out of these programs, by the way. And then using drugs, sexual abuse, and fear to control victims. And then there was symbolism, occult rituals, and invoking spirits during their programming. So either all these survivors have the same wild imagination, or the same watcher-controlled playbook has been in use for a very long time, updated with government funding and modern science. Your taxpayer dollars. That's great, isn't it? What's interesting is if you think all this is just crazy conspiracy nonsense, well, Hollywood sure loves to tell on itself in plain sight, doesn't it? Stranger Things, the hit Netflix show, was originally called Montauk. I don't know if you're aware of that. Now, why did they do that? Well, it's because the entire premise is based on real-life government mind control projects, specifically the Montauk Project, which is directly linked to MKUltra. The show's character 11, Genesis 11, yeah, is a direct reference to children subjected to government experiments, particularly psychic experiments and trauma-based conditioning. So the gateway to another dimension, or the upside down, that sounds suspiciously like the interdimensional work that the Die Glocke, or CERN, and deep black budget projects have been obsessed with for decades. Now, of course, Netflix presents it as fiction, but why does Hollywood keep recycling fictional stories about government mind control, psychic programming in alternate dimensions? I have my conjecture on that, which is just as our Heavenly Father sends His prophets before He brings judgment. That's a promise He made, that before He would send judgment, He would always send His prophets. Well, I think He holds the same heavenly laws requirement for the Watchers. They have to reveal themselves in some way, shape, or form of what they are doing. So they reveal it through things like Hollywood, TV, and the media, and so on. You think it's fiction, and they probably mix it with some things that are absolute fiction. But some of it's not. Some of it is telegraphing stuff. Because I think they're required to. Or they wind up getting, sent away to the abyss or Tartarus before their time. And I think they try to walk that careful, fine line because everybody wants their freedom, right? And so, part of the process here is to delay judgment as long as possible, right? So where did MKUltra go? Officially, it was shut down in 1973 after the Church Committee exposed some of its horrors. All the key evidence was destroyed by the CIA, of course, so we're just supposed to trust them about everything, right? But many believe it never ended. It just rebranded under new projects. That I have no doubt of. And knowing what we know about the government, do you have any doubt of that either? Yeah. So, MKUltra wasn't just about spies and Cold War paranoia. It was about controlling populations, reshaping human identity, and paving the way for a new world order where minds are programmable. Because it wasn't just on an individual basis that MKUltra was studied. It was also a program to study mass programming, like through TV sets, through propaganda. So the Watcher-driven agenda has always been the same, really. Break the human mind, reassemble it in their image, and eliminate free will and ensure absolute obedience. So let's move on to the 80s. By the 1980s, MKUltra ended, wink wink, but its methods didn't disappear. Instead, they evolved into more advanced black projects, including Montauk, a continuation of deep military experiments into mind control, time travel, and interdimensional contact. Montauk is, of course, the government's worst-kept secret. While MKUltra was all about breaking the human mind, Montauk was more about harnessing it, weaponizing psychic abilities, altering time, and maybe even opening gates to something else. And so here's how it allegedly worked. You had Montauk Air Force Station, or Camp Hero, in New York, housed deep underground facilities where mind control and psychic warfare experiments took place. The goal was to train psychic spies, create remote influencers, and even erase or reprogram people's memories. Maybe that's why some people experience what's known as the Mandela effect. Whistleblower Preston Nichols, one of Montauk's most well-known insiders, claimed experiments included time distortions, contact with non-human entities, and even the accidental release of some hostile creature. Yeah. So, this has, of course, connections to pop culture, like we mentioned earlier. Stranger Things 11 was really based on real government experiments that were done on children at Montauk. And the Montauk Project does tie directly to the CIA's remote viewing program, or Project Stargate, where they trained operatives to spy on enemies via out-of-body experiences. Yep. I know you guys think this is, well, not all of you. Some of you will think this is far-fetched, but you can go look up the records. It's all out there. This crap really happened. So, did they successfully manipulate time? Some insiders claim that by the late 80s, the military had already unlocked looking glass technology that allowed them to view possible futures. So, while time travel isn't possible, what they did discover on some of these is the ability to see various timelines and how they could play out. It doesn't mean they're going to happen. It's just basically it's almost like telling the future, I guess. And also slowing down time. So that, for instance, well, think the Flash. Like, you could move super fast because you slow down time for everybody else. So, what happened? Montauk was allegedly shut down in the 1980s, but just like the MKUltra, it's highly unlikely these experiments just stopped. In fact, you know they didn't just stop. Instead, they morphed into classified projects, possibly continuing in locations like the Dulce base in New Mexico, which is linked to hybridization experiments. We'll do some more on that next. Area 51, S4, where secret technology, reverse engineering, and non-human interactions reportedly still continue to this day. And underground deep military bases, or DUMBs, rumored to be conducting experiments beyond what is publicly acknowledged. So, let's talk Dulce Base. It's one of the most controversial and sinister black site locations rumored to exist. So if you think Area 51 is creepy, Dulce takes it to a whole new level. So what is it? Well, it's located beneath the Arcoleta Mesa in New Mexico. Dulce Base is allegedly an underground research facility conducting human genetic experimentation. Whistleblowers, including former military personnel, claim that Dulce is where the government has conducted biological and hybridization research, often in cooperation with non-human entities. Dulce is said to have multiple subterranean levels, each dedicated to different experiments, surveillance, and quote-unquote containment. Of course, you have to be thinking, well, containment of what? I don't want to know. I don't ever want to see it. So, what kind of experiments? Human cloning and hybridization, attempts to merge human and non-human DNA, cybernetic implants and biological enhancements, transhumanist-style experimentation, psionic abilities, and telepathic research, possibly derived from Montauk and MKUltra, and then interactions with what they refer to as reptilian and greys. Some reports suggest that non-human entities are actually assisting in the research, much like the alleged agreements made under Majestic 12 in the 1950s. Frankly, I think the reptilians are just another name for seraphim, angels with a serpent-like appearance in their structure, in their face and body. And the gray, or what we call the greys, is in my opinion, some sort of genetic suit for them to live in. For those who don't want to have to take on a human host or take on a human body, I'm not really sure. Or it could just be some sort of biological creature that they've developed for whatever their purposes are. I don't believe that they are aliens from other realms. I think they're interdimensional beings of some sort that we've been in contact with since biblical Old Testament days. So, Paul Benowitz, a physicist and defense contractor, blew the whistle on Dulce in the 1980s, claiming to have intercepted classified communications proving hybrid experiments. Phil Schneider, who I'm sure you're all familiar with, a government geologist, also spoke publicly about Dulce, claiming he worked on deep underground tunnel systems and saw disturbing biological experiments firsthand. Now, there was sudden silencing of insiders. Benowitz was institutionalized, and Schneider, well, he was found dead under suspicious circumstances. So, the government response to this, total denial. But why is the government suddenly so interested in UFO disclosure now? If these bases never existed, why have ex-intelligence officials suddenly admitted that classified UFO UAP research is real? Yeah. So by the late 1980s, UAPs or UFOs went from tinfoil hat talk to mainstream culture. Those of you like myself who grew up in the 80s as teenagers, we remember that the only people that were taken seriously about UFOs or whatever were, ridiculous redneck drunks out in the cornfield or tinfoil hat people. Now, everybody sees them everywhere. And it's taken seriously. It's been quite a transition, believe me. So, why did this happen, this transition? Because government leaks, whistleblowers, and accidental declassifications were making the topic impossible to ignore. Instead of admitting deep-level genetic and technological experimentation, the strategy became controlled disclosure. The media started pushing UFOs as extraterrestrial visitors, but what if that's only half the story? The big question: are these UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, truly off-world, or are they highly advanced military craft developed from Montauk, Dulce, and paperclip era technology? So, what did the 80s really show us here? Well, first, MKUltra ended, but its successor projects went underground. That seems pretty clear. Montauk moved from breaking the human mind to weaponizing it. The Dulce base is rumored to be working still to this day on non-human genetic experiments. And the UFO narrative was strategically pushed to the public, perhaps as controlled misinformation. Don't know. I would say that because I think they're going to have the Watchers are going to have some way of explaining the disappearance of Christians, assuming the rapture is a theologically sound doctrine, and it does happen, then they're going to have to explain it. And this is a great way to do it. So, 90s to present, we have the final phase, digital enslavement and transhumanism. So if the 20th century was about breaking the mind, then the 21st century is about replacing it altogether. The age of trauma-based mind control and hidden manipulation has evolved into something far more efficient, a voluntary digital prison where people hand over their free will in exchange for convenience. So in the 90s, the internet basically becomes the new control grid. What started as a military project, ARPANET, or ARPANET, in the Cold War suddenly became a gift to the public. Yeah. So Al Gore didn't invent it. But why? Because a controlled internet is the ultimate surveillance and behavioral programming tool. That's what bots are all about. See, the way the human mind works for propaganda is if you all think something is popular, or I'd say you all, we all, if they make it seem as if hundreds of thousands of people are enjoying, say, a musical artist they want you to enjoy, or a whatever the case may be. So they make it look as if it's so many people are into it, and they just post it everywhere till you're sick of it. And then they use that to basically steer the course of narratives and what you will wind up thinking about certain subjects and things. If you don't believe that, just know that this whole paradigm of left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, and all this, if you're still falling for that trick, then you can rest assured you're falling for their programming. Because they're all two wings on a corrupt bird. They don't care about you. They never have. They never will. You are basically chattel or cattle to them. And I know everybody wants to think that Trump has come along to save us all, but I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't trust any of them. The one person I will trust to set things right at some point will be Jesus Christ. None of these other figures. And so, Google, Facebook, and Amazon didn't just happen to dominate the digital age. They were funded and guided by entities with deep intelligence ties. Social media rewires the brain, creating addiction loops that make the MK Ultra mind control experiments look like primitive by comparison. Algorithms shape behavior by controlling what people see, believe, and react to. And so, whether you realize it or not, your free will is being eroded over time in real time. Have you ever noticed how people instinctively, including myself, reach for their phones in any moment of silence? That is behavioral engineering at work. And so in 2008, we wind up with Neuralink and the transhumanist sellouts. In 2008, it was founded. Neuralink was founded. One of many companies pushing brain-machine interfaces. The goal? Merging human consciousness with AI. Transhumanism was no longer a fringe concept. It became the next step in evolution. The narrative shifted from biological control to digital enhancement. Because what's better than controlling a mind? Plugging directly into it, right? This isn't speculation. The WEF, Google, and DARPA are all openly investigating or investing in human AI integration. They're selling it as convenience and efficiency, but the real question is, who gets to control, or who's in control when your mind is connected to the hive? So, 2016, we have the World Economic Forum and the open admission of digital enslavement. The WEF, or World Economic Forum, publicly declared, you'll own nothing and be happy. I'll translate that for you. The elite will own everything. You'll rent access to the necessities of life if you get them at all. And freedom? Optional. Dissent? Digitally erased. Most likely, you'll just be plugged into your fake world on your phone, or maybe with a virtual reality headset. Who knows? You won't care about this world no more. Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Harari, the WEF's ideological architects, an insane person. Have you ever heard this man speak? They openly state that humans are hackable animals, which we are. Free will is an illusion, which I don't believe it is. But they approach this from an atheistic approach or humanism approach. The era of individual autonomy is over. And if they have anything to do with it, it will be. So the point is they don't even hide it anymore. They believe humanity is obsolete. So in 2020, we get the rollout of biometric tracking, social credit, and AI-controlled lives. The 2020 global crisis became the perfect justification for mass surveillance expansion. Governments worldwide pushed digital ID systems, biometric tracking, and social credit mechanisms. And AI algorithms now determine what's acceptable speech, who can access financial systems, and who can travel, work, or even buy groceries. The final steps that are being put in place is at some point you can expect a universal digital ID tied to banking, medical, and legal records, cashless economies, full control over financial transactions, AI-driven policing and behavioral prediction, and total censorship and reality shaping through deepfakes and digital rewriting of history. So the pandemic years were a beta test. The real control grid is just beginning. And it's in full swing. And you're more likely to surrender to it because we have a cult of personality who will eventually be pushing these things, and many will accept it because it's their guy. So the final goal here is a post-human digitally controlled society. If the Watcher Rebellion began with the corruption of human DNA, why would they stop now? The ultimate goal isn't just control, it's transformation. Always has been. Right? Just like the days of Noah. Matthew 24 warns us, right? The elite bloodlines will rule as gods, untouched by the systems they impose. The masses will either be absorbed into a controlled transhumanist hive mind or deemed obsolete and discarded. And humanity, as God created it, will cease to exist, replaced by something else that is not fully human. And this is why the Seed War never ended. It is definitely still ongoing. You just have to pay attention. The same Nephilim deception, or really the Watcher deception, that corrupted the pre-flood world is now wearing a digital mask. And the goal is the same: erase the image of God and man and make a way for the counterfeit kingdom. So what do we do now? From Babel to the Nazi occultists, from MKUltra to AI-controlled social engineering, the Watcher agenda has never stopped. The tactics have evolved, but the goal remains the same: corrupt humanity, erase free will, and establish their dominion. They tried it before the flood. They tried it at Babel. They tried it through secret societies, occult wars, and technological enslavement. I'm convinced Tartaria was another Babel that had to be dismantled for the unification of humanity under their system again. And now they mask it under transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and mass digital control. They are not creating a better world. They are remaking it in their image, and they are not improving humanity. They are seeking to replace it, and they are not bringing enlightenment. They are bringing permanent submission. But just like before the flood, their plans are doomed to fail. So, the good news, their time is short. This is why they're accelerating everything. Social control, economic manipulation, genetic transformation, AI integration, because they know what's coming. At some point, Jesus is returning. And before they can fully complete their plan, before they kill off all who resist, before they transform humanity into something unredeemable, he will come back, just like he said. The enemy knows this. They fear it. And that is why the deception is at its peak, because their time is almost up. So, with that in mind, let's wrap this up. Next week, again, we're going to break down today's tactics in real time. How the Watchers are infiltrating modern events, media, politics, and culture to push their final deception. We'll expose the tools they're using right now to make the final moves before the return of the king, because whether they like it or not, this war ends with their total defeat. But it appears to me that just like in the days of Noah, they are almost successful again, because Scripture does tell us that had Jesus not cut those days short and come sooner than he was planning, or at least that's what it kind of sounds like in Revelation, when his foot touches the mountain and it splits in half, creating a new valley. It's a lot to think about, isn't it? Well, anyway, it's time for me to get to bed and take some NyQuil. But before I do, I would like to thank you all for listening. And don't forget to share, like, support us by commenting or hitting that thank you button and, donating the cost of a cup of coffee to support us. Some of you have done that, and I appreciate it. It's very kind and thoughtful of you. And don't forget that this coming Wednesday will be viewer or listener emails and comments, and then Friday, the top 3 stories of the week. Don't miss out. Wednesday, 9 p.m. Central. Friday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And with that, I'm going to play you out again with our band's music that we're writing. It's not finished. There's no vocals on this track yet, but we're working on it. And here you go. Have a good work week, everyone. Later.